Tim Pool and his team got swatted. Police showed up right in the middle of a live broadcast. We're going to break down what happened on the show video. We're also going to take a look at exigent circumstances. How did the police get into Tim's studio? What gave them permission to do that? Supreme Court did. We're going to take a look at where that came from. But before we dive into the law, let's take a look at what happened live during Tim Pool's show. Here it is.
7 pandemics, and there was only 4 cases of them that didn't result in a revolt or large-scale protest afterwards. And they actually announced a number of times.
Yeah, the cops just walked in.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Should we? Yeah, that I was looking at my notes and I was like,
did somebody swat you?
Yep, somebody swatted us.
Did
Someone
they really?
swatted us?
Yep, somebody swatted us. So that's
How do you know?
what that
How do you
was.
know?
I have somebody texting me.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so Tim's gonna
wow.
take care of
so,
business.
yeah, just a police officer
Just stroll
entered
it in.
here, looked around because it looks like someone swatted this live broadcast here.
Glad they didn't come in here bussing, man.
I'm glad, yeah, man.
I mean, that's something that's extremely dangerous, extremely reckless, because SWAT incidences have led to a lot of innocent people
Literal
dying.
death.
Yep.
Dogs being shot, people being shot, people thinking that their house is being raided by criminals defending themselves. So whoever did that and they're listening, like,
Big time. Yeah, not a good thing that happened there. And very interesting, you saw that Brandon Tatum was there on the show with them, who is a former police officer. He was on this channel some time ago. And so very dangerous situation indeed. If you're not familiar with swatting, it's when somebody calls the police and says that there's something bad going on at a location, and the police come up in full force. Sometimes things happen poorly. Let's take a look at what Wikipedia says. It's a criminal harassment tactic of deceiving an emergency service, like police, by making some sort of a threat or a situation is going on that demands they come in there. Like somebody might be armed or somebody might be close to taking their life or something like that. SWAT, of course, comes from SWAT teams, the Special Weapons and Tactics team. Somebody calls the police, says something very serious is happening. In Tim's case, he's going to explain what happened. But you can see here very serious repercussions. You can go to jail, you can go to prison for these things. Full cost of a response can lead to fines of $10,000. Fatal swatting accidents have happened. We can see there was a 2017 incident. On December 28, 2017, there was a Wichita police officer. Andrew Finch was in his Kansas home. Police officer appeared in a swatting incident, shot and killed him. He died at a hospital. Somebody was indicted for that, somebody named Barris. Federal grand jury came out. Maximum penalty for a crime like this, maximum would be life in prison, while another charge could carry up to 20 years. Barris was ultimately sentenced to 20 years in prison. Obviously, somebody died in this case, and so that's why he's going to be facing some serious penalties. We had another incident in 2020, Mark Herring. This guy was 60 years old. He was in Tennessee. He died of a heart attack after police responded to false reports of a woman dying in his home. And so swatting was organized in an attempt to force the man to give up his Twitter handle at Tennessee. Shameful. One man was arrested for the swatting. Minor was also involved. Now, very serious offense you can see here, according to 18 U.S. Code 875, interstate communications. We can take a look at subsection C. It says, whoever transmits in interstate or foreign commerce any communication containing any threat to kidnap any person or any threat to injure another person shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 5 years. So you can see any communication with any sort of threat to injure the person of another. Somebody's calling law enforcement and saying that there is something very bad happening. Law enforcement needs to show up to stop this. Law enforcement shows up using force. That person gets injured. It's not a direct threat towards the person, but it is a communication. If this is being transmitted in interstate communications, feds may be able to get involved. Here is what Tim Pool said after he got up and went and had a conversation with law enforcement.
I don't know who let them in or why.
Yeah, what happened?
I understand they're here because we got swatted. A report was made that 2 people had been shot and killed, and that the gunman was threatening to hurt themselves. They didn't send a SWAT team. It was just a couple of officers. I don't want to drag them or be mean to them because they were polite. But I'm not happy with the idea that they're walking into our studio while we are live. They're walking around, Cop immediately, I walked out of the room. He immediately came up and said, I'm really, really sorry about this. We're not trying to, screw with you or ruin what you're doing. Here's what happened. We got a call. 2 people had been shot and killed, and a person was going to be killing themselves. We have to check it out and make sure everything's okay. We're going to be doing a sweep once we figure it out. And I'm just like, come back with a warrant.
Come back with a warrant, he says. Well, unfortunately there, Tim, Supreme Court has been watering down your Fourth Amendment rights and mine for quite some time. There's a Law Review article over from Hofstra Law Review. It says, despite the apparently clear mandate of the Fourth Amendment, courts have fashioned exceptions to the warrant requirement that allow law enforcement officers to effect searches and seizures without any prior judicial authorization. One of these exceptions is the exigent circumstances doctrine. As early as 1948, Supreme Court recognized there are sometimes exceptional circumstances in which, on balancing the need for effective law enforcement against the right of privacy, it may be contended that a warrant may be dispensed with. Yeah, you just don't need it. Further reading, you can see Valle versus Louisiana and Warden versus Hayden, 1967. There's newer case back in 2006. The Supreme Court came out with this one, Brigham City versus Stewart. This was a unanimous decision. A lot of more recent judges, John Roberts, Clarence Thomas is still up there, Alito, John Roberts, the Chief Justice. This was a case where police ruled, Supreme Court, said the police may enter a home without a warrant if they have an objectively reasonable basis for believing that an occupant is or about to be seriously injured. So this would be the case that would be on point for Tim's situation. They were able to go in there. They said that they had an objectively reasonable basis based on all of the facts, not the officer's personal opinion of the situation, but based on the observable facts. Any person in that officer's position, if they would have found it to be reasonable to go in there to try to save somebody or to prevent a serious injury, they would be allowed to do it. Unanimous, 9-0. Supreme Court says, yeah, but sure, go on in there. And so you can see how this becomes a very slippery slope that has been being watered down as long as I've been alive. So I'm glad Tim and his team are okay. There are other situations where it doesn't turn out as well as it did in that situation. And it's also good news for Tim that there are some limits to this sort of exception to the warrant requirement that exists under the Fourth Amendment. There was another Supreme Court case where the police went in using an exigent circumstance like the one we see used in Tim's case, and then they started searching for other things. They picked up a stereo. They looked at the bottom of the stereo. They saw that there was a serial number on there and that stereo was stolen. They prosecuted that person, but the court said that search was outside the scope of what the exigent circumstance allowed. And so that charge ultimately didn't go anywhere. So there are some limitations to it, but you can still see here how uncomfortable this can be for anybody. If you're sitting there and law enforcement just shows up, you don't know if they're there to save somebody or to throw you in handcuffs. And so it's a very, very scary situation. You can see the look on both gentlemen's faces when the law enforcement officers show up there. Fortunately, it was just a swatting incident, and hopefully law enforcement investigates this and brings those who did it to justice. But good luck to Tim and his team in piecing together what actually happened, and I will see you on the next one.